Good evening, family, and welcome. My name is Arlene Cahet. Cahet meaning purifying light of God, and my beloved, he is on his way. So we have been reading the prophet, and we are at the last section where he bids his farewell. Now we are going to end up doing this as a two-parter because the wisdom that the prophet shares is in terms of his leaving and in terms of his memories of how he engaged with the community that he had lived in for for a few years, has a sort of two different tones. And so we are going to deal with that today. Now, here he is.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I do appreciate it. Indeed. It's interesting.
This is King Obadele.
The Oracle.
Okay.
King Obadele, giver and receiver of a deeper wisdom. I honor the divine in you and those who have come before us. I find it intriguing that this section of the book comes as it does, because I've been moving to and fro to establish a new reality in my life and our life. I don't know if you know of the 5,000 Kings campaign initiative, of which we are embarking upon. So you see, it's the radiance of you alone. It is not the light. But I think it's probably, if we do this one here. No, give it a try. Don't worry about it.
Okay. No, it's that light.
So I mean, you can turn it off if you want. But
well, you may want to reshift that back to where it was.
Or we can make some adjustments. Well, anyway, people, what's been going on is I've been doing my best to get some new things established in our reality, and we haven't quite figured out lighting yet, because we came rushing up in here as quickly as possible so that we can be on time and in time, and the lighting is just not what we wanted it to be.
No, let's switch it back. I'll tell you when to stop.
Oh, turn it like so?
Yeah.
Keep going?
Okay, and that's good.
That's good?
That's good.
Okay.
I'm still bright, but that's okay. We're gonna just go with
purifying
that.
Light of God. What do you expect? That's what Kahet means, purifying light of God. So, hey, we can live with that. Ain't no doubt. And so saying, the reason why I brought that up is because the 5,000 Kings Initiative is about attaining $500 million for the transformation of our communities. It's going to happen. I'm not worried about that part. The concern I have is in making sure that it happens, and that what is called, what's that term? Corruption. And that thing that's called corruption is eliminated. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. And everybody's sick of it. We've seen the things that has happened during the course of time, and what corruption has done to our communities and our experiences. No more of that. No more of that. I'm going to establish something on Clubhouse called No More Corruption, No More Corruption, to start the process that's necessary for us to move forward in capturing what's required of the appropriate audiences. So I say all that because this portion of the book is a farewell. I'm leaving a certain aspect of it, and of the many things that we are transitioning from. We have to acknowledge what we are transitioning towards, and in so doing, we shall accomplish mighty things, because it's a must. So, with that being said, we're going to read through this section, and then we're going to come back into it to express some of the highlights, the points that we have seen affect my life and life's living, and the reflections of it during the course of my journey of these. I'll be 65 this year. So that equals 11. That's a significant number in the sense that there's something really spiritual about it. And my mission is to remove the blocks or the obstacles that hinder spiritual evolution. One of the biggest problems of our existence on this planet is that we are not evolving spiritually. That's the crux of the problem. Once you capture that understanding, then you can move forward into the realities of what life ought to be for all of humanity. Because there are no inferior race on this planet, not one. It's only inferior thoughts, and those must be shifted. Thank you. Arlene.
Yeah. And how am I supposed to follow that? So, one of the things that I will say is that in terms of spiritual evolution, just know that there are things in this world that actually hinder your growth. And it is always wise to be mindful of those things. Many of us already sort of know what they are. However, people at times get caught up, looking to avoid the challenges and the pain that comes from just living life, at least on this plane. But what I have observed is that what is required is a sort of evolution beyond that pain, and to be in a place of allowing the pain to evolve you in some ways. And it is high rock. It is necessary to evolve past that pain, because what happens is, just because of living, people get stuck in the pain and want to hold on to anger and resentment and those, and not that to say that they are bad feelings to have, to be angry and resentful, but it is incumbent upon you and for your evolution to evolve past those things. Also, I think that what has happened over the past few years is that people have effort to be more mindful with their expressions of speech. Yeah, with their expressions of speech, and there is this desire to be politically correct. But the thing is that it also kind of leads us into a place of getting overly sensitized to what people are doing and saying, and not to say that, you know, that we should not be kind to each other and be mindful of our words. However, to be in a place of this absolute expectations that the world is going to conform to your desires in terms of how other people are going to behave is slightly unrealistic. It, you know, being in a place of understanding where people are and how they are operating in the world, and being in a place of accepting that when you're in a place of evolving more, there is a place where you will allow a person to be who they are, what they are. I know that this has been an ongoing challenge for me. And actually sort of having to recognize that some of the people who have challenged me the most, that there is a degree of that angst that they stir up that's within me. And so when I began to dig into that more for myself, one person in particular, she has a little bit of a mean streak, and she's honest about that. And when I the natural inclination of mine is to just cut her off, because I've been really good at doing that. But I had to sort of sit with that and recognize that, well, why was she in my experience in the first place? And it took me a while to sort of reconcile that. Hi, Paul. It took me a while to reconcile that, you know, I have a bit of a mean streak in me as well. That I had to just sort of take a look at it. Now, I will say that when I started to recognize that within myself, and to be mindful of how that comes out in me, those things that irritated me, you know, that irritated me in the other person, stopped irritating me less. And it just, you know, I'm just like, okay, you know, she is just doing she's just doing herself. And also allowing me to be sort of honest about where, you know, when those moments arise, or when I've given her sort of my assessment of how she could be. I was like, you know, yeah, you can be mean. And you can be mean, but I love you anyway, and, you know, we're going to go forward, and just accept each other for where we are. And also, I also observed that after I got to that place of just accepting that about her, those criticisms that she would have of me, you know, they don't show up nearly. They don't show up almost at all. But then, you know, my main concern was to really be more reflective upon myself, and sort of eking out those things, that those sensitive areas in myself.
Because we all are a reflection of one another in some sense, form, or fashion. And every experience of meeting another person is merely an expression of a divine process of a season, a reason, or a lifetime of an experience which is necessary for our forward mobility. So whether it is smooth sailing or not, all is a process. And we all must embrace that as such so that we continue to move forward, because no matter what your situation, no matter what your thoughts, we all are here as a continuation of creation. With that being said, I guess we'll start the reading and then we'll backtrack. This is going to be part one of the reading because it is a two-part conclusion. And we found a location of which seems most appropriate to conclude. So this section here is going to be what you're going to read, and then this section here, and then I'll start reading the remainder. And now it was evening, and Almitra, the seeress, said,
Blessed be the day, and this place, and your spirit that has spoken. And he answered,
Was it I who spoke? Was I not also a listener?
Then he descended the steps of the temple, and all the people followed him. And he reached his ship and stood upon the deck. And he faced the people again. He raised his voice and said,
People of Orphalese, the wind bids me leave you. Lest hasty am I then the wind, yet I must go. We wanderers, ever seeking the lonelier way, begin no day where we have ended another day. And no sunrise finds us where sunset left us. Even while the earth sleeps, we travel. We are the seeds of a tenacious plant, and it is in our ripeness that our fullness of heart, that we are given to the wind and are scattered. Brief were my days among you, and briefer still the words I have spoken. But should my voice fade in your ears, my love vanish in your memory, then I will come again. And with a richer heart and lips more yielding, to the Spirit will I speak. Yea, I shall return with the tide, and though death may hide me, and the greater silence enfold me, yet again will I seek your understanding, and not in vain will I seek. If aught I have said is truth, that truth shall reveal itself in a clearer voice, and in words more kin to your thoughts. I go with the wind. People, but I don't want us. I'm just saying, whoa. And if this day is not a fulfillment of your needs and my love, then let it be a promise till another day. Man's needs change, but not his love, not his desire that his love should satisfy his needs. Know therefore that from the greater silence I shall return. The mist that drifts on shall rise, gather cloud, and fall down in rain. That's over there too, so you can operate there. And not unlike the mist have I been. In the stillness of the night I have walked in your streets, and my spirit has entered your houses. Sidebar, I think of being a paramedic and how this is so real for me. And your heartbeats were in my heart, and your breath was upon my face, and I knew you all. I knew your joy and your pain, and in your sleep your dreams were my dreams. And oftentimes I was among you a lake among the mountains. I mirrored the summits in you, and the bending slopes, and even the passing flocks of your thoughts and your desires. And to my silence came the laughter of your children in streams, and the longing of your youths in rivers. And when they reached my depth, the streams and the rivers ceased not yet to sing. But sweeter still than laughter and greater than longing came to me. It was the boundless in you. The vast man in whom you are all but cells and sinews. He in whose chant all your singing is but a soundless throbbing. It is in the vast man that you are vast, and in beholding him that I beheld you and loved you. For what distances can love reach that are not in that vast sphere? What visions, what expectations, and what presumptions can outsoar that flight? Like a giant oak tree covered with apple blossoms is the vast man in you. Sidebar. Be mindful. An oak tree and apple blossoms is an interesting contrast, for an oak tree does not produce apples. Just something to think about. But the analogy here is how beautiful the blossoms are of the apple tree, yet how great the oak tree can be. And for that to be covered with apple blossoms is a sight indeed. Moving forward, we shall continue. And that vast, I'm just going to add this real quick, and that vast man in you, this is a book written back in the early 1900s. So he's speaking of God, who goes by many names. And we all are expressions of that which is the manifestation of the physicality of a spiritual energy that is all things. I shall continue. His might binds you to the earth. His fragrance lifts you into space, and in his durability, you are deathless. You have been told that, even like a chain, you are as weak as your weakest link. What's up, Terry? Blessing, bro. But this is but half the truth. You are also as strong as your strongest link. To measure you by your smallest deed is to reckon the power of ocean by the frailty
Frailty.
of its foam. Say the word.
Frailty.
Frailty of its foam. To judge you by your failures is to cast blame upon the seasons for their inconsistency. Ah, you are like an ocean, and though heavy, grounded ships await the tide upon your shores, yet, even like an ocean, you cannot hasten your tides. And like the seasons, you are also. And though in your winter you deny your spring, yet spring, reposing within you, smiles in her drowsiness and is not offended. Think not I say these things in order that you may say the one to the other, he praised us well. He saw but the good in us. I only speak to you in words of that which you yourselves know in thought. And what is word knowledge but a shadow of wordless knowledge? Your thoughts and my words are waves from a sealed memory that keeps records of our yesterdays and of the ancient days when the earth knew not us nor herself, and of nights when earth was upwrought with confusion. Ooh, I definitely got to come back to that one. Wise men have come to you to give you of their wisdom. I came to take of your wisdom. Yes. And behold, I have found that which is greater than wisdom. It is a flame spirit in you, ever gathering more of itself, while you, heedless of its expansion, bewail the withering of your days. It is life in quest of life in bodies that fear the grave. There are no graves here. These mountains and plains are a cradle and a stepping stone. Whenever you pass by the field where you have laid your ancestors, look well thereupon, and you shall see yourselves and your children dancing hand in hand. Verily, you often make merry without knowing. Others have come to you, to whom, for golden promises made unto your faith, you have given but riches and power and glory. Less than a promise have I given, and yet more generous have you been to me. You have given me my deeper thirsting after life. Surely there is no greater gift to a man than that which turns all his aims into parching lips and all life into a fountain. And in this lies my honor and my reward, that whenever I come to the fountain to drink, I find the living water itself thirsty, and it drinks me while I drink it. That's page 88. And in reflecting, I think back and I see my cousin Angela here, and I see Michael Campbell, Terry Horrocks. We saw Rock, and we also saw our brother Paul, which was from junior high school. And these are people who had poured into me. They had poured into me their love, their understanding, their companionship. And it is these things that makes me who I am today. And these are just a small portion of the people who are part of that living experience that the seasons had brought through the power of the divine love, of the process of the God force that lives in us all. I thank you for coming in to listen and capture these words we share. Arlene, please entertain us.
So in this portion of this last segment, one of the things that struck me was that even though the people of this community came to see him off, and
In Orphalese.
Yes,
we don't want to get it confused with me.
Ha ha ha.
Okay.
I think the people know.
Okay, thank you.
But as he was leaving, they're coming around to gather and see what last bit of wisdom that he has to share with them, and he is telling them that like you may actually think too little of yourselves, because I have gained an insight from being in community with you, that as you are pouring into me, I am pouring into you, that there is a part of me that still will keep you all with me, in terms of my memories and in terms of the wisdom that you have shared with me. And I think as I read that particular section, what struck me was that how many there are memories of the people who with whom I have grown up with, who were the adults who surrounded me, who shared with me their experiences when I was wise enough to sit and actually maybe question them and listen to them. And the more that they shared with me, the more I came to a better understanding of myself. Even those people who, the relationships that I may have had with them were particularly strained, and helping me to determine what direction I wanted to go with my life. And it did not really matter whether or not the relationship was something that was close or that I was desiring to be close. What it showed me was those relationships that were more challenged. I would pretty much say, well, I would like to have a different experience. And I see that, I was able to see, even in their not sharing, just being in their presence, that the challenges that they were experiencing in terms of their pain actually taught me. And I could see how their living resulted in the experience that they have, and more so with those people with whom I got along with fairly well. Many of them have transitioned, and I do recall, like, when I moved to Baltimore, I did get the opportunity to travel down to North Carolina to visit a family member of mine, and she was a cousin, maybe a second or third cousin, and I got the opportunity to spend some time with her. And I have to admit that living in the family that I have, that I didn't always see myself in them, in terms of thought processes and how I navigated my world. And when I got the opportunity to spend time with her, I recognized myself and say, oh, you know, this is where it comes from. This really being in a place of a perpetual listening to the divine within. Not to say that the family members that I was around did not actually have that, but they seemed to be very much, you know, plodding along and continue, you know, moving, navigating their life, but not seeming, if they had that type of leading, they weren't actually verbal with sharing those experiences with me. So when I read that section, I was like, wow, you know, I never really gave it that thought. And even in their even in some of their passing, the the memories that I have with them are near and dear to me in terms of how I still may navigate through my experience. I am complete, King.
Yeah, the God force in all of us. What's up, Brother John? The God force in all of us oftentimes is not clearly identified by the individual. And as I was looking at a segment here, it reminded me of the truth that we all have that God force in us, otherwise we would not be alive. It is the manifestation of life itself that lives, moves, and has its being in us. There's a meditation that I do called the I Am, of which the first that I acknowledge is the soul, which is the manifestation of that which is connected to the divine. And then I take in the breath. I whisper the I am, because that's what the breath of life is about for me. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am the soul. I am the light of God, speaking the manifestation of the emanation of that which has come forth, that which is projected, that which goes forth to see all there is to see, to visualize, to capture, and capture the imagination. And then I follow that one by, I am the will of God. That is so powerful for all of us. For if we were not the will of God, which I then follow with I am the will, then we would not be. So the first section here says, even while the earth sleeps, we travel. Think of it. Many of us slumber and we dream dreams. Yet it's not our dreams traveling. Some sense, some form. Sometimes it's so real to where it's difficult to even come back out of it. Yet it says, we are the seeds of the tenacious plant, and it is in our ripeness and our fullness of heart that we are given to the wind and are scattered. That is our soul. We are everywhere. That life force is everywhere. It's abundance. It's like the seeds flowing like spores all throughout the planet Earth. Everywhere there are people, and we all are one. as this whole planet, when in conjunction to the thought of looking at the galaxy and the cosmos, we are but a cell when we look at it from the concept of a galaxy. We become smaller, a grain of sand, when we look at it as being the universe. And then when we look at it as the cosmos, this earth, this planet Earth, is just a dust particle. You see, there are so many things that perception can shift to capture a deeper and greater understanding. He says, brief were my days among you, and briefer still the words I have spoken. But should my voice fade in your ears, and my love vanish in your memory, then I will come again. And with a richer heart, and lips more yielding to the Spirit will I speak. If aught I have said is truth, that truth shall reveal itself in a clearer voice and in words more akin to your thoughts. That's now. That's what's being shared here. He says, I know therefore that from the greater silence I shall return. We all shall. For energy we are, and to energy we shall return when we depart from this which returns to dust. For no one stays here. Not one. For even the story of the Christ speaks of him who came as a God force that lived among us, but still returned back to the source. Yet is the force that remains amongst us when we come to the greater perception of identifying with our divine self, which is the reason why the Christ force came as that imitation of life, to recognize the manifestation of the life in you. He says, the mist that drifts away at dawn, leaving but dew in the fields, shall rise and gather into a cloud and then fall down in rain. And not unlike the mist have I been. You know, we have this thing in science that says living is reflective of whether something grows and moves and has animation. And as I read this section here, and I was looking at a movie the other day, and there was supposedly a witch which could turn into a bird or turn into several particles of a bird.
Or several birds.
Several birds, like a swarm of birds, right? Or even a swarm of bees, if you will. Now, think, if you will, open your mind, imagine with me, if you will. If man can conceive this as a thought, then could it not be also true that every cloud that we see is the expansion of that which is life still? For without water there would be no life. Yet water comes to visit us regularly, comes down as the dew, the mist upon the soil, the ground, and leaves the dew on the leaves of the field. Then it rises up and moves back into the ethers. If you watch social media platforms, you'll see that there has been experiences of which there has been cloud forms that have rested amongst people, moving on its own free will, as it's floating, just floating, and then just decides to leave on its own. A cloud.
Looked like a bunch of bubbles. It did. Kind of reminded me of that. It reminded me of that, but it wasn't bubbles.
A cloud. The clouds themselves. And as big as they are, could they not also come to condense themselves into rain, of which you can feel pat on your head? But could they not also condense into something else? For no thing is impossible for the one who created all things. Just another thought, just I wish to share. And then it says, in the stillness of the night, I have walked in your streets, and my spirit has entered your houses, and your heartbeats were in my heart, and your breath was upon my face, and I knew you all. I was a paramedic for 20 years. And when you're doing CPR compressions on a person who has a cardiac arrest, when you put that breath inside of them, when you give them those compressions, that breath comes right back out you, right back in your face. Sometimes when you blow your breath inside of them to expand their lungs, some of that breath comes right back into your face. I'm looking at these things here, and it says, these things. In the stillness of the night I have walked in your streets. I have. And my spirit has entered your houses. I have. I truly have. And your heartbeat were in my heart, because my heart would start racing also when I see the excitement of that person who needs that assistance, who needs that help. It's like, please help us now. There's an emergency that we don't know what to do with, but we're calling for you. And I come to bring forth that which I have been gifted to bring. And your breath was upon my face, for you requested these things of me, and I knew you all. I knew your joy and your pain. I was there when that mother was in contractions, and she couldn't hold the baby any longer, because the natural aspects of life came forth to push that baby out, and I was there to capture that child, to make sure that the breath of life was going to be what it called this child forth to do. And if not so, I was there to do what was necessary, to clean the nostrils, to clear the mouth, to breathe into the child if necessary. And there has been situations where that has happened, to where the child did not take that breath. There has been situations to where there were those who were stillborn, and there was nothing we could do. The child, I remember a call of which the mother had told us that she was already told that the baby had died several months before the contractions started. One child was alive, but the other one was not. And the one that was alive came forth, but the one that was not was breached. And that baby's arm was hanging out of the mother's womb, out of the mother's birth canal. And we couldn't move the child because it was breached. And we had to take her to the hospital. And just to think back and to feel her anguish, knowing that there was a child that died within her, that refused to come out, that wouldn't come out. And she had to be transported still with the thoughts of that child, lifeless, still there. Still she was strong. But just to imagine the anguish, yet the joy at the same time, because the other child still lived. So I think of the times when I was on the streets and I saw these, one situation which blew me away, where this child was shot in the street. He was in the drug world, they were in the drug world, but the mother of the child had such an unusual behavior, because as she come running up the street, when her son told her of the other son who was shot, she turned around and said to that child, "Why wasn't this you? Why did this have to be my baby? Who did this to my baby? Who did this to my baby? You should have been the one. You should have been the one laying in the street." These are the memories that I still hold within me. I don't tell people that story often, but I was there when it happened. I knew your joy and your pain, and in your sleep, your dreams were my dreams. And often I was among you, a lake among the mountains. I mirrored the summits in you, and the bending slopes, and even the passing flocks of your thoughts and your desires. So, even in my emotions, I had to be still as the lake. Because I couldn't say anything to that woman. I had to be the lake. I had to be the calm. Because this child of hers, she was in pain. And whatever was going on in their relationship, there was little I could do but to comfort as best I could in the middle of the street where there are hundreds of people. Well, it felt like hundreds of people because we were surrounded. But we had to call the police. We had to have the body taken from the street. We had to take the body from the street. And in so doing, you never picked up a lifeless body. Hey, Adrian, blessings. If you never picked up a lifeless body, you don't know. But a lifeless body is so much heavier than a body that has life. And we picked this body from the street to put the body on the gurney. And when we lift that body up to put the body on the gurney, it was a heavy body. And she did not like what happened. She said, "Don't you throw my baby around like that. What's the matter? Don't you? This is my..." And she laid on this dead man. And I had to talk to her. And I had to apologize to her because of her perception. I had to say, "Ma'am, we're so sorry. We meant no harm. We're going to do what we can. But you know he's gone." She was like, yeah, Yeah, but why? Why my son? Why my son? While her other son was right there grieving also. Even though I was the lake, I still feel the emotions. I still feel those moments. Sometimes I get joyous and I'll laugh and have fun with my wife and have expressions of joy, and we're always smiling. But there's things that I've seen, that I've experienced through others' experiences that still are here. The time where there was that woman who thought that in taking her infant child to that bed with her, because the child was a little restless, that in laying in that bed with that child, she was going to give the child comfort. She was not a small woman. She had went to sleep and she forgot the child was there. When she awoke, she remembered the child, but the child was underneath her, and the child hadn't breathed for a long time. When we got there, she wanted us to give her comfort. This child was smashed underneath her body. And all I could do was grab that child, that infant, and say, we're going to do the best we can. And I rushed out of that building. I rushed out of that building. I rushed into the ambulance to take that child to the hospital. This child that I already knew was dead. The child was stiff. The child was flattened. So you can't say to me that I do not know the pain, that I do not know your joy. I've been amongst you as one of you in so many ways. Even in pain, I had an experience of which I had become depressed in such a manner to where I had fallen prey to drug addiction. Although it was brief, like 2-3 years, although it was brief by the grace of God, there's no evidence that it even occurred. But for God, there could have gone high. So I have the compassion of Christ to recognize and understand so many things that has been going on in our world. So yes, it says, I mirrored the summits in you and the bending slopes and even the passing flocks of your thoughts and your desires. And to my silence came the laughter of your children in streams and the longing of your youths in rivers. And when they reached my depth, the streams and the rivers ceased not yet to sing. Every life experience is a song, whether it is a lethargy or a song of exaltation, a song of praise or lament. It is still a song. And it is the harmony of the universe that allows all of these songs to be sung. But sweeter still than laughter and greater than longing came to me. It was the boundless in you, that vast man in whom are all but self, the vast man in whom you are all but cells and sinews. That's that energy, that life force. For energy we are, and to energy we shall return. It says, that vast man in whom you are all but sinews and cells, he in whose chant all your singing is but a soundless throbbing. It is in the vast man that you are vast. And in beholding God, that I beheld you and love you. Do you see why these words mean so much to me? This poet, in the early 1900s, wrote words that are my words that I can share with you. For what distances can love reach that are not in that vast sphere? What visions, what expectations, and what presumptions can outsoar that flight? Like a giant oak tree covered with apple blossoms is the vast man in you. You see what I mean about the giant oak tree and the apple blossoms? You had no idea you was going to enter into a story like this tonight. But the blessings of the Lord has brought it forth as such. I am grateful for every experience that I've had. I am grateful to be able to be there to assist others. I am now a spiritual life coach, a philosopher of life, because of the experiences that I've had, empirical as well as from textbook and the wisdom of God. That's why we share these. And in closing, I'm going to end with this. His might binds you to the earth. His fragrance lifts you into space. And in his durability, you are deathless. You see what I mean when I say, I am the soul. We are one. That's the conclusion of my meditation process of the I am sequence, of which I will share on one of these Facebook pages in the coming days. But we love you so much. We do not want to belabor you, and we want to respect your time. So our hour is nigh. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, it's 4 minutes after.
Doggone it! I knew we was going to go over. I just knew it. That's why we couldn't do the whole our conclusion. We're going to do the rest of it probably next week.
Alrighty. So, family, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, we thank God for you, and we know that wherever you are, God is.
We bid you love. Namaste.
Namaste.